This is the Team Objection podcast for November 16th, 2020. It's a Monday, so you know something is strange. And if you have any inkling about anything with basketball whatsoever, or have ever listened to the show before, you can probably guess what we're talking about. It's an emergency podcast. Podcast? I like that, actually.
I like that. That's really good.
Podcast? It's a podcast about Chris Paul. The Suns have acquired the 9-time All-Star and sure-to-be first-ballot Hall of Famer near the tail end of his career, granted, but still picked him up for basically Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, two meaningless players, and a 2022 first-round pick, the protections for which we'll talk about. But the hell with what we gave up and all that stuff. We'll get into that in a bit. Let's first talk about, it's been a few hours now. We've kind of heard that this was a rumor for a few days, picked up steam very quickly today, and then was basically announced as a Woj bomb late this morning. So with a few hours' time, have you come to terms with the fact that Chris Paul is a Phoenix Sun?
For some reason, I felt like when there were as many rumors that were going around and many people saying, like, yeah, this thing's real, guys, I almost accepted it then. And it was just fantastic to fully get it now and be like, okay, now it's real. Now I can, like, plan the future almost. So, yeah, I've accepted it.
I take issue with meaningless players. My dog just came in and burped.
You're going to make the case for Jalen LeCue here?
Oh, no. Kelly and Rubio, or were you just meaning
which I said,
fluff?
Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, and two meaningless players, because we're not here to advocate for the other two players in the deal.
I especially don't care about Ty Jerome leaving.
Yeah, let me tell you what, and we'll touch on this later as Dave frantically gets everyone out of the room. We'll talk about the pick, but like, if you want a case in point about draft experts, quote unquote, not knowing what the fuck they're talking about, let's look at last year's draft. Cam Johnson pick, panned. Most people hated it. Ty Jerome pick, beloved. Most experts thought it was one of the best picks in the first round. Well, let's see how that's working out less than a year after that.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I'm not saying I'm smarter than the draft experts. I don't know jack shit about the draft. I know even less about this year's draft class other than it sucks. I'm just saying how quickly things can turn and how much of a crapshoot the draft is. So Ty Jerome's exhibit A of that.
You know, I think I've accepted it. My expectations are tempered, though. I think it's a big deal, but more for it's a splashy move that shows we're trying to invest in Booker. We're bringing a big profile name to Phoenix. I'm tempering my expectations on the actual basketball side. I have the highest hopes, but I don't know. I'm not ready to say, for example, that we're going to be anywhere 4 to 6 next year in the lineup. And I know we can do this it's not roster baiting, but being like, well, the A and B teams are falling out, so now we're gonna jump ahead of them. We probably will do that, but I'm not ready to go there yet. I think it's a good move. I think it shows that we're invested in the future, but I'm a little conflicted still.
So, I mean, you're right. I think you're right to kind of reserve judgment because we're not done yet, really. You know, we talked about the draft, obviously, but also there's free agency coming Friday. Mm-hmm. Literally this Friday, free agency is coming. So a week from today, we might know a lot more about what we're doing. But really, I think the reason this move was a good move is because basically we weren't going to re-sign Oubre. I don't think after this year. Chris Paul and Ricky Rubio have basically the same contract length. Much different in money, but different length. So we basically upgraded our point guard. That's a kind of it, I think, is like the best part of this. Because we have wing depth already with Cam and Mikal.
Yeah, I'm with you about being torn. 2 points, really. One, you're right. We don't really have a complete picture of this yet, so why do the podcast? Well, because Chris Paul's the most meaningful domino in this by far, so it's fine. But the draft is Wednesday. They kept the 10 pick this year. That was rumored to be included at one point, but it's not. Probably a wise decision, especially when you start looking at the cap sheet in future seasons as Booker's extension continues to rise, and eventually Ayton and then Bridges also come up for bigger money. So that's valuable, as is the pick in 2021, which is supposed to be a good draft, which they also kept in this. They gave up one in 2022 that basically says, if we're not out of the lottery by then, well, it's still protected, but even if not, then we fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, at a certain point, it's like, if we haven't made the playoffs by 2022, Booker's going to want out. We're going to be a sham. Everything's going to fall apart. So who cares anyways?
Well, and that's why we put the protections on. I mean, it's top 12 protected in 2022, top I think 8 protected in 2023, top 6 protected in 2024, and then finally unprotected in 2025. I mean, basically, in order, like, if we really suck and everything falls apart, we're going to keep our draft pick for years, like the Lakers did with their Steve Nash draft pick every year, until it didn't mean anything, until we could rebuild, hopefully, through the draft. So,
but ideally, it doesn't matter because again, we should not be picking in the top 12 in 2 years because we're not going to go super down the rabbit hole. We'll talk about next season and what this means a little bit later. But 2 years from now, all the key players are still here. Whatever free agent move we make here coming up for a power forward, whether it's keeping Saric or somebody else, and this number 10 pick and next year's pick are all part of the equation, and everybody else is locked up. Paul, Booker, Ayton, Bridges, Johnson, etc. That year is really interesting to me because LeBron's another year older. The Clippers could self-destruct if they even still have Paul George. Both him and Kawhi come up for free agency then. And Steph and Clay are going to be 33. Not old and busted by any means, but some of those big perennial powerhouses in the West that we're looking at all have big question marks 2 years from now. So both for next season and the one after, I think this has a lot of viability. It's still a risk, and to Sean's original point, it is kind of a shame to just kind of boot Oubre and to a lesser extent Rubio after they were a big part of why we were able to do what we did last season. Yes, Oubre didn't play in the bubble, but his culture, I think, was the most important aspect of his time with the team.
It bothers me, and you don't hesitate on this move. This is big for a lot of reasons, and especially I know some people were like Chris Paul, injury history. It's like, yeah, same with Rubio, and there's a player who missed all 8 games of the bubble. Do you remember him? It was Kelly Oubre, who's young. So, like, at this point, it's almost like every player has some sort of injury risk, and you just got to roll the dice. And I appreciate that the Suns did that. They rolled the dice. It bothers me, though, still, that, Kelly's so big for our culture, really helped define our identity. And both Kelly and Rubio, they showed us some loyalty. Like, I know we offered Rubio money, but he still chose to come here and to just be like, thanks for your services. See ya. It bothers me. I know it's a business and I get too sentimental and I'm aware, but that stings.
It sucks. You're right. I mean, when I look at this trade, I'm thinking like, how many times have we bitched about Chris Paul on this podcast and kind of what a dick he is, basically? I mean, he's a huge jerk on the basketball court, but now he's our asshole. And it's kind of like, okay, but I loved Ricky and I loved Kelly Oubre. And I wish, I don't know, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wish there was a full capacity of fans in the stands the first time Oklahoma City comes back to Phoenix. So we could give Kelly the proper, like, Kelly and Ricky the proper welcome back they deserve. And it's going to suck that there's going to be 100 people in the stands basically thanks to restrictions of limitations of fans attending. But I don't know, like I love everything they did for us, and I am really happy they did what they did, and thank you for your service, but we now maybe have a shot at being a top 4 seed.
It speaks to how far we've come despite not coming very far. And what I mean by that is there's no way Chris Paul comes here last year. Like, forget the different contract lengths and blah, blah, blah. And his own situation where his contract was considered untradeable until he went through a bit of a renaissance himself. Just outright, if he could come here, if there were no other restricting factors, he never would have come here before last season. And it's the same thing now going forward where I think him coming here, being eager to play with Devin Booker, Booker welcoming Chris Paul into the fold, Ayton's potential growth. Now all these things continue to build momentum. And maybe that means that we get a free agent who wouldn't sign here otherwise. I have no idea. Chris Paul's coming off the books at the point at which we'd be looking to sign a free agent, so I don't even know if that matters. But it's about pedigree to me and about respectability. So the fact that the Suns did what they did last year, which again still didn't even make the playoffs, it's at least something.
No, I love creating. Oh, not even creating, seeing the narrative threads in things that happened. So hiring Monty Williams was huge for the culture, made an immediate impact on the team, but also, like you said, gave us a bit of a pedigree and credibility and respect.
Chris Paul's former coach, too.
Yeah, right, and he loves him. I definitely did not miss that. And then we go 8-0 in the bubble. I would like to think that had some meaning. If we don't go 8 in the bubble, 8-0, does Chris Paul still consider here? Maybe, but I like to think we had a good performance that really both showed what we're capable of, but also Devin Booker as a budding superstar, kind of both of those things, to make someone want to come play here. So I like to think that what we went through last season did have meaning, and to even more thank Rubio and Oubre for their part in that.
Well, it's funny how it all came together too. When you think about it, like Rubio being a very good serviceable point guard, but we could find better. And then we went 8-0 in the bubble without Oubre, which basically meant that because we signed him to that 2-year contract, which we probably paid him a little more than he should have, but it was a shorter deal. And then we went 8-0 in the bubble without him, made him so completely expendable, but valuable at the same time. It was a weird situation where a player is like, dude, we really like you. We love everything you do for us, but we can't wait to trade you. It was a weird situation, but look what we got out of it.
And if we're gonna ship away, like if we're gonna betray the loyalty, which bothers me, it happened kind of in the best way it could. There was no player saying I want out, trade me, like James Harden is getting ready to do. There was no Austin Rivers situation of like I don't want to play there. It was just like kind of mutual interest, and all the stars seemed to be like in on it, I'm sure Devin Booker was involved and he okayed it. And then Chris Paul, the same thing. Saying I want to play for Monty Williams. I think it's going to be exciting to play with Devin Booker. It was about the best way that it could have gone. And I like that as a fan after the Morai and all of the train wrecks that we've had, having something, even our botch trade where we got the names wrong. It's like having something just go smoothly again, gives us that credibility that's been missing.
We got Oubre in that trade, in that botch trade. That's the reason we ended up with Oubre.
And that's fine, but it's like, of course, it was like hitched. We messed it up somehow.
If we even did. It's still unclear if that's entirely what happened or if that was actually blown out of proportion. I mean, who knows? It's definitely possible we did. I'm not willing to give our front office and Robert Sarver the benefit of much doubt, but I mean, who knows? It's entirely unclear. The one thing I'll say is I wish this had been kind of a surprise. I think James Jones has done a much better job than McDonough did about keeping things close to the chest and then sort of not leveraging basically against himself. Whereas like McDonough was very cards on the table, like, well, we hate Markieff Morris, so we're going to get him out of here and whatever we get back for him, I mean, whatever, who cares? He didn't have the player and personal aspect to it. James Jones, by all accounts, has all of that, but he's also been pretty secretive and hasn't leaked stuff for the most part. So I'm a little surprised it got out as early as it did.
Apparently, they were not happy about that.
Correct.
Well, I heard a rumor that the person, and I don't know how true this is, but the person that really was leaking this was Chris Paul himself, because he really wanted to go to Phoenix. He knows that Oklahoma City's GM Sam Presti was going to try to extract as much as humanly possible and drag this out. So if the rumor got out and the leaks were out there of who was involved, it's like, okay, we got to move on this or it's going to fall apart. And that pushed the process along, which may have saved the Suns some assets, possibly. Who knows?
Could be.
Well, I know Cam was on the table for a while.
I hope not.
I shouldn't say on the table. He was desired, though, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now look what it ended up being. Now, again, I'm not going to throw shade at Rubio or Oubre. Like you guys, I'm happy with their contributions. But from a raw player perspective, the very thing I just chided McDonough for, we got Rubio for nothing. Signed him as a free agent. There wasn't that much interest in him. A couple other teams for sure, but nothing huge. And we got Oubre for effectively nothing because we got Ariza for nothing, and he was a fucking loser, and we shipped him out in that trade we just talked about. And then again, it's just LeCue and Jerome and a pick that may or may not have all that much value. It doesn't seem like they're going to lower the age limit, so there's not going to be a huge rush of more players coming into that draft in 2022 than we thought originally. So it was a free agent signing, a draft pick, and an unsigned free agent for Chris Paul. Now, yes, Chris Paul has a $40+ million contract. He's at the tail end of his career. It's not that simple, but it's kind of that simple. And what else were the Suns going to do? What big free agent were they going to get next offseason?
Or getting Giannis.
Giannis isn't walking through that door. So, to me, this is their best shot to be as competitive as possible, to keep Booker from being disgruntled, to show their interest and their, for the first time in a decade, their drive to actually do something with themselves.
Yeah.
And hopefully that goodwill pays off both for Booker and Ayton, but also other people wanting to come here, future free agents, future draft picks. All of this says we're in it to win it. The hell with how good the West is. It means something to me. I appreciate it even if I don't know how it's going to work out.
Yep.
Exactly. Who was Chris Paul? What team was he on before Houston? Was it? It wasn't the Clippers.
The Clippers. It was.
Yeah,
the Clippers.
he was with the Clippers for
so
what, 7 years before Houston.
So I mean, he was a big part of the Houston getting to the Western Conference Finals, and then he got hurt. It was the Western Conference, right?
You can argue that if he doesn't get hurt before Game 6, that I
They're
would
in the
think
finals.
Houston would win one of those games. I mean, who knows? But certainly a big factor in why they lost that series.
And then he came and he revitalized Oklahoma City, who no one thought was going to be good. So the more I look at it, I'm kind of thinking like, I was kind of on the fence of like, oh yeah, Chris Paul, he's washed up. And I'm like, I don't really have a great reason to think that.
Isn't it stunning that Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook were traded for one another, and Houston had to give up a lot of assets because we thought of Chris Paul as this toxic, can't touch this contract. Well, the toxic can't touch this contract right now is Russell Westbrook. I don't know who wants him. Maybe the Knicks because they're stupid.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's amazing how quickly that turned around, and it makes total sense when you think about it. When Chris Paul's game isn't always built on athleticism, it's built on basketball IQ and just smart playing.
I mean, he can shoot better than Rubio. That right there. And the thing is, you're not giving up like athleticism for shooting. Or Rubio wasn't tremendously athletic either. So, can we have somebody finally who can run a reliable pick and roll with DeAndre Ayton? Which Rubio, I'm very grateful for what Rubio did. He was huge for us. But like that was one piece that I was like, oh, that never really happened. And maybe it's kind of Ayton's fault more. I don't know. But to have the opportunity to revitalize that, I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's kind of my big-time question mark, and it doesn't really matter at this point because Rubio's gone, but it's like Ayton missed the first half of the season. Part of the second half of the season was wiped out and then resumed in the bubble with limited practice time beforehand. So, like, did he and Ayton really ever have much of a chance to click?
True.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a moot point at this point. It's not really worth going into, but I'm not sure. The one thing I do know is this. To me, Ayton is going to be the biggest beneficiary of this trade. A lot of the talk so far is focused on Booker, and rightfully so. He's the face of this franchise, and that backcourt's going to be really damn good. But to me, it's about who better to light a fire under DeAndre Ayton's ass than Chris Paul. Is there anybody in the league who's going to be better suited for that task right now?
It's really going to be a telling sign of how DeAndre Ayton does this. Because I think this is a major crossroads in his career. He's either going to be a very nice bench player for the rest of his career based on just his natural talent, or he's going to become a superstar. This is it. This is the time where he picks his path, basically. Because Chris Paul will break him down Michael Jordan style into a quivering pile of just nothingness. And is he going to pick himself up? Is he going to be able to take that criticism and build himself into something better? Is otherwise Chris Paul just chew him up and spit him out?
Is he actually like that though? I know
that's the That's the question.
Between teams, he is like he's an asshole to like the opposing team. When he was on the Clippers, he was awful. But like to his teammates, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if he's more like nurturing or even like tough love, or if it is like the Jordan route where it's like, I'm going to make you hate every day here, but you're going to excel.
I think it's more tough love than Jordan route, but I don't know if Ayton will take that. I mean, when has Ayton ever gotten that from anyone in his career, in his college, high school? I mean, when you're the best player, the tallest, most talented player on every team you've ever been on, when you get challenged finally, how do you respond to that?
And somebody with a proven pedigree.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's no slight against Booker. And let's be honest, Chris Paul hasn't won anything in his career either. But it doesn't matter. I mean, Paul's been a winning player, a franchise player, somebody who's been in the league for a long time, somebody other players have always wanted to play with. And we saw what he did for Tyson Chandler's career, and Tyson Chandler was a fraction of the player that DeAndre Ayton could be.
Mm-hmm. Tyson Chandler didn't have the offensive game. He had athleticism. He didn't have the offensive game Ayton does.
Correct. Didn't have the footwork, the finesse, the touch. All those areas, Ayton is better than Chandler, and he's pretty much as good with the athleticism and as good defensively. Maybe not quite yet, but he's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I know it doesn't mean that much, but I love that I'm going to be able to say that we can add yet another all-time great point guard to the Suns.
I mean, at this point, what do we have? 2 of the top 5 all-time point guards in our history?
And
3
and
of the
more
top
of
10,
the top
probably.
10, I would say.
4 of the top 10. You're probably right.
Probably. Don't know if Jason Kidd quite makes it. He's close. Don't know if KJ quite makes it. He's close. He's prorated because of his injuries.
4 of the top 15 then.
Yeah.
Unquestionably 4 of the top 15.
Yeah.
Now, granted, this is going to be sort of like the Shaq situation. Hopefully not like that where he broke it down and fell apart. But just in the sense of no one's going to remember that Chris Paul in a Suns uniform when his career's over, unless we win a title. But still, it's nice to know that, hey, this is like point guard you again after so many years of just absolutely lousy point guard
That's what I'm
play.
saying. Like, we lost a decade, but like we're kind of, it feels like we're back now. Both identity, competitiveness, relevance.
And it's very telling to me, by the way, that I keep saying I don't want to throw shade at them, and I don't, because the temptation is to immediately like abandon the outgoing players and welcome the new ones with open arms. Chris Paul's a dick, but I'm really glad we have him. And Oubre and Rubio were great. However, Rubio is a league average point guard.
Yep.
Maybe above average. We're not going any further than that. He's not top 10. And Oubre is maybe just barely a starting caliber 3 in this league.
He's a great sixth man.
He's an excellent sixth man, and but we don't know if he would have settled for that role. And do we really want to be paying a sixth man that much? Like, these are all questions that we never have to answer now.
Yeah. But now this is what I'm the point of all that, because I already lost it myself, is that Rubio felt like water in the desert. It was a man dying of thirst, overloading on reasonably competent point guard play. Chris Paul is better than Ricky Rubio at almost every single aspect of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the twilight of his career, he's on another level than Ricky Rubio is. He was second-team All-NBA last year. He's made 9 All-Star teams. Rubio hasn't made any. Some of the temptation for folks is like, was it that much of an upgrade? I'm not saying it's a huge upgrade, but it is an upgrade. Anybody trying to argue that point is just an idiot.
I was amazed, though, that like analysts who most of the time I trust, most of the time they get it right. People were like, LA, for example, is going to be really, really good. And I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah, they have the 2 stars, but their supporting cast, they won a title. So, like, clearly sometimes I don't know shit. All the analysts were like, this is a huge move. The Suns are going to be like 4-6 in the West next year. This is big. And I was like surprised for a few reasons. One, they're talking about the Suns on like ESPN.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like AZ Central. This is the national television.
I was actually amazed at how much press we got for it, but then I remembered, oh, right, there's no sports during the week because football's on the weekends and nothing else is happening. So that's part of it. But nonetheless, this would have been a big deal. No COVID, whatever time of year. This is a big name and a big trade.
Yeah. And I wonder how well, I think it's going to help out actually this season is because this is a shortened season, like a lot of people were really concerned about Chris Paul and injuries and if he's going to stay healthy. And like we said earlier, injuries can happen to anybody, but this is a shorter season. This is a 10-game shorter season. So if Chris Paul takes 5 games off thanks to rest and stuff like that and plays only, 65, 67 games, something like that, he could be really rested and we could still have a really good record type of. I mean, I think it's going to help him a lot. This is kind of the best season to get him in, you figure.
And I think Booker is going to help because I think he gets worn down and Rubio helped with that a lot, but I think this is going to help even more take the pressure off Booker.
Well, this will just let Chris Paul run the show for 3.5 quarters, and then if we're close and we need a bucket in the last minute, go to work, Book. Go do it, that type of thing. And then we have a backup where if Booker gets double teamed, all right, good. We have a playmaker that he can pass to now, as opposed to not.
And a reliable shooter and somebody who's not afraid of clutch moments. Not that Rubio was, but again, Chris Paul, we've seen, while he hasn't won a title, I mean, he has a series-winning shot on his resume and plenty of other big moments in his career. To me, the biggest thing is the Suns were god-awful when Devin Booker didn't play last year. As you would expect, that's true of most stars on most teams. But they looked incompetent offensively, even with Rubio on the floor. They were better than without Rubio. But Chris Paul's minutes with both the Clippers and OKC, not so much with Houston, but the Clippers and OKC, he primarily would play like the first 7 minutes of the first quarter and then start the second, which will give us that perfect alternation with Booker to where neither one of them should, they shouldn't both be off the floor at the same time. And I would trust Chris Paul to run that offense a lot more than I would trust Ricky Rubio.
Yeah. Well, and I can't, the shooting cannot be overstated. So it's huge for this offense. We have a starting 5 who every player can hit a 3, except kind of Ayton. But
you got to respect him at least.
4 or 5 can shoot a damn good 3. And so the scoring that comes from the 3s is great. The gravity that pulls from the inside to let Ayton go to work in the middle is also huge. No one respected Rubio's 3. I mean, not really. Even he shot 36%. It was not bad. He wasn't drawing out defenses for his 3.
No, he actually did everything we could have asked for him from 3 pretty much based on his history. He improved his catch and shoot 3-point shot incredibly.
Yeah.
Great job, Rubio. Thank you. Bye, but thank you.
Yeah. But like the fact that it's going to open the interior, Booker's a great driver. Ayton go to work on the inside. It's huge. I mean this. Yeah. So I said I didn't want to do this. I know I kind of want to, but only if you two do. Of like, who are we better than now? Who are we still worse than?
All right, I think it's pretty clear the top 3 in the West.
Totally.
And this, I don't think there's a lot of question about this because all the Nuggets are losing is basically one sort of starter in Jeremy Grant, and maybe Paul Millsap will be a little less corpse-like next year. Who knows?
Yeah,
Lakers,
but
the LA even be 2.
The LA teams are 1 and 2.
Yep.
In some respect, as long as the Clippers don't go crazy and trade like Paul George for Russell Westbrook, which was a rumor last week.
Please do that.
That's
I know.
They seem to be struggling. If things go well for the Clippers, they will be number 2. Yes.
So the Lakers won the title, and they have no reason to think that they wouldn't be number 1 again. They probably will lose Rondo, but they're going to pick up Schroeder in what I think is actually a good deal for them.
Upgrade. So
they got it for
an
nothing. I mean, nobody gives a fuck about Danny Green. I'm so tired of his inconsistent ass in the playoffs, and I think he's extremely overrated.
They got Dennis Schroeder for the 28th pick in the draft. Like that, huh?
Yeah.
Like I sent a text out to you guys during the playoffs about how Danny Green has shot like 31% from 3 over the last 4 finals or something. So it's like he's got this reputation, but it doesn't match his actual basketball acumen anymore. Anyway, so the Lakers are slightly better, probably, and they'll probably find some more little nuts and bolts or people taking veterans minimum or something to fill out that roster again. That'll be fine. Clippers, a bit dysfunctional, new coach, lose Harrell, and I don't know. Lou Williams is a year older, but they're still really good. I don't think there's a lot of question about that. Nuggets keep almost everybody, lose Jeremy Grant. They still have a little bit of wiggle room, and they should have a healthier Will Barton, so that would help quite a bit. After that is where things get interesting to me.
Because I'm like, well, let me just say really quick, LA is so scary to me because LeBron, when he starts declining, he's still going to be great. And he hasn't even started that yet. So
not
that's
even
scary.
on.
Anyways,
I mean, maybe like a sliver.
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
a sliver, and it's mostly in like his free throw shooting and a couple other smaller aspects of his game. But
he improved other things like his passing. So
yeah, he's just getting smarter and smarter.
He's terrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean and that's kind of what I wanted to do it because I'm like, okay, you have our team, and you have Dallas. Before the Chris Paul trade, I think you definitely give the edge to Dallas. And I'm basing a lot off of our bubble play. Maybe that's a bad idea, but I'm going to do it because I have hope. That roster compared to Dallas's roster, I mean, we at least stack up now.
Yeah.
I'm still not super impressed with Kristaps Porzingis. He never came back as quite the same player. He's still like 8 feet tall, so that's cool. But
yeah, you want to talk about injury concerns?
Yeah, no kidding.
Luka Doncic is great by all accounts. We lost that. We know it. We've accepted it, and we've moved on. He's amazing. But then, like, I mean, what else is really scary about that roster?
Nothing. I do think that the Suns absolutely can be better than the Mavericks this year. I mean, with the all-star level point guard running the show, Booker, and another year of Ayton, Mikal, and Cam all playing, if they continue what they did in the bubble, I don't see any reason why I can't, especially if the Suns can bring back Dario Saric and Aaron Baines. So I feel like that's a good 8-deep roster right there. It's an incredible.
I think Baines is coming back. Saric is the question mark. It's not really worth going down the rabbit hole. Do we upgrade at power forward instead? Is it Christian Wood? Is it Gallinari? Is it maybe Jeremy Grant? I don't see that one personally. We'll see. I mean, my expectation on this is that we have some other signing of some kind to fill that power forward position because we don't really have enough bigs, and I don't trust Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges there for a full season. I just don't. And I don't trust Frank Kaminsky there as far as I can throw him.
Oh, God, no.
So,
no. You know what? We fucked up a little bit, though. Golden State should, by all accounts, be in the top 3.
I don't know if they're top 3.
Really?
Yep. I think they're definitely a threat to be, but you have Clay coming off of a devastating injury, Steph Curry getting another year older, and I mean, I think Draymond Green has been working on his three-point shooting in the offseason, but I don't think he's going to get back to like a marksman or anything. They were at their best when he was shooting like 35% from 3. It's been plummeting year over year down to like 29. If he gets that back up, it helps them a bit. The biggest question for me is how good is Andrew Wiggins? So far, in 7 years of his career, the answer has been not very. But as a fourth option with the right team and culture around him, they go as far as he goes, which is really weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but this is far from the title team that they had, right? When they were younger, they were shooting better.
And their depth hurts.
And they had Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston and all those guys.
Barbosa,
who they don't have now.
Yeah.
They have Marquise Chris.
I think they could be better than the Suns this year.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
they probably will be.
But I don't think they're a lock for top 3. I think the Nuggets are a great regular season team, and I think the 2 LA teams, those are like your top 3.
That is top 3.
The Warriors could be a top 3 team, but I wouldn't pick them just right now as it is.
But teams that are going to fall, if you look at the standings, the Rockets, I see them plummeting, especially if they trade James Harden.
Unless they keep James Harden, and even if they do, let's say they keep Harden and Westbrook, which like I really don't think is going to be the case. Let's say they manage to pull it off. I don't know that they necessarily are definitely better than we are.
I don't think so.
I don't think that team is that good.
I feel like they're just ready to blow up completely, and from the inside, basically.
Well, an hour before we started recording this, reportedly James Harden turned down a $50 million per year extension.
I saw that.
Which would have taken him into his age 36 season. Doesn't necessarily mean he's out the door, but I think it really starts to put a little more credence into those he wants to go to Brooklyn rumors.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a whole nother story, and we won't want to go into it until it happens, but that would be real interesting. That could be its own 15-minute segment.
Yeah.
Fifth and sixth in the West last year with the Thunder and the Jazz.
By Thunder.
Thunder, you're better than, of course. Like 100%. The Thunder for sure.
I mean, I want to be careful counting out the Thunder because they manage to exceed expectations every year.
No, they're dead.
But they don't have anyone anymore unless
they have a lot of draft picks.
What's his face? The New Zealander is gonna carry them.
Steven
no,
Adams.
they have
no way.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a very good piece. Rubio and Oubre will be just fine for them. Lou Dort was a pretty good defensive shooting guard, but they don't have a star. They have nobody that can carry them at that point. So they're going to be 12th place, probably, I think.
No, they're positioned really well. I mean, they fleeced Houston. They got another first-round pick from us, albeit a sort of an iffy one. They've got, 17 in the next 4 drafts or something like that?
It's crazy, yeah.
17 and 7 drafts, I think is what it was.
So even so, and they're obviously not going to make all those picks. They'll probably look to package them in deals for something else. So they have a lot of flexibility, and they've positioned themselves really well. They got to win a playoff series basically in the middle of a rebuild. That's the perfect scenario. You keep yourself relevant now and build to the future. They're not going to be good next year, not in that West.
No.
So they're gone. Utah to me is a big question mark. Huge question mark. Because to me, if I were Utah, I wouldn't want to be paying Rudy Gobert $40 million a year. But then what do you do with him? Do you trade him? You're not going to lose him for nothing. You can't do that. But what do you get back for Gobert? And what does it do to your defense? Because he's the entire anchor of their defense. What does that look like? I have no idea.
They don't really scare me that much either. I don't know. It could be the bubble. It could be weird stuff from that. I felt like watching them play the chemistry was never really the same. And maybe I'm just making shit up because I've heard rumors and whatever, but I feel like Mitchell and Gobert hate each other, and you can tell. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, them losing Bogdanovich was a huge blow to them.
Yeah,
I think he was. But the thing was, at that season, it was a huge blow losing him. I don't think he's gonna be that important going forward. I can't say you're a centerpiece of a team or like the linchpin that holds everything together for a team if you're Bogdanovich.
I think he's a really nice rotation player and a good starter, but I don't think he's the linchpin of them being a top 4 seed. Because they weren't last year.
I mean, even if you have Golden State at 4, Utah at 5.
Yeah, who else?
I mean, we're still
Portland. Portland's still Portland, and they missed a lot of their bigs last year. I mean, they missed a lot of players due to injury last year, so they're still hanging around.
I'm over them.
I know, but they're still hanging around.
Yeah, they are, and I'm sure they will continue to be a thorn in the side. I don't even dislike them. I just hate that they're always in the conversation. It's like, go away.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like them. I like them more lately too. They've had some interactions with our players that I've actually kind of enjoyed. But
Damian Lillard making a 3 off the back of the rim, 25 feet up into the air in a game that the Suns really needed them to lose, has put them a little bit more on my shit list than they were before. Just one shot, tremendously enough, was enough to do that.
Damian Lillard scoring 60 points in 7 straight games or whatever it was. That hurt bad.
Yeah.
All I wanted was a taste of the playoffs.
I do think they're a playoff team. Do I think they're better than the Suns? I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that.
Grizzlies, John Moran, JJ into the year, but too young. Spurs, old. Forget them.
Thanks. Kings. Pelicans.
Interesting.
I know the media is ready to anoint them in Zion, but they're going to have to actually show it to me over the course of a full season before I believe it.
And if Giroux gets traded,
Yeah, I think Ingram's really coming into his own. I think he's maybe a top 25 or 30 player at this point. But I don't know if he's good enough to carry that team without having Holiday around to help.
Exactly. Timberwolves can't, I don't know. Like, you figure, like, they seem like they'd be really good, but not better than the Suns, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And then the Warriors we talked about.
Yeah.
The other big thing that's kind of weird about this is both what happens with the Warriors and the Timberwolves as far as the draft. If for some reason the Timberwolves nail that number 1 pick as somebody who can contribute right away, maybe they contend for a playoff spot. And the Warriors, if they happen to get somebody who's really good at 2, and I mean not projected to be good, but is actually good from day 1 in the NBA, they also get then much more scary.
Mm-hmm.
So the West is still a disaster, basically, and there's no guarantees, and we could still do bad. But what the Chris Paul trade does for me is it improves our range. If our range last year was like worst in the West to like maybe, if everything goes right, we're the 8th seed. Now our range is like 10th at the worst, but maybe I
feel like 8 is the
4th?
worst.
I don't know. 5th?
I feel like 8th seed is the worst. Like 9th seed is the worst type of thing. And now they have a play-in for the 7 and 8 seed. The 9 and 10 is a play-in type of thing. They're going to do a similar thing.
Oh, yeah.
I love that they're doing that. I'm going to be really sad when the first year they do the play-in, it kicks us out of the playoffs.
I've already considered it.
Yep.
I've already considered finishing 7th and losing to like fucking Memphis in the 10 seed in like the reversal of last year. Now Memphis is trying to play in, and I've considered it. I've already considered it. I fought it away. I don't want to think about it. It makes me sad.
But yeah, I mean, so just the hope now is like, best case scenario, we could maybe make the playoff, guys. It's like, no, we could.
We should make the playoffs.
We should make the playoffs, and if everything goes right, we could even have a home court advantage. Well, whatever that ends up meaning next year. But
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy to me, and that's what this trade does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge.
Feels good, man. Like, just the fact that we're relevant to be talked about on national TV, that we're talking about, all right, now when we make the playoffs, where are we going to be seated? 10 years, 11 years now since we've said that. It's incredible. And finally, like, it's coming together, and I feel like we have hope, and it feels like Phoenix is kind of like finally not a joke anymore.
That's the big thing. Like, even if we end up not making the playoffs, which I don't think is going to happen, it's like we are starting to build back that reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And look what it's taken. We had such a strong one. It took a long time to undo it, but now it's also taken a few years to dig it back out of the hole. And it sucks that it took that long, but maybe we'll be more grateful for the title after the journey's over. Not this year, probably, but just whenever it happens.
And I will say, I don't want to short. Kelly Oubre has actually had a huge part of that, like making Phoenix cool again.
Yeah,
making the Suns.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I that was like his play was fun. It was energetic. It was great off the bench in spurts. But overall, his contribution to just making it be like, hey, Phoenix isn't a dumpster fire anymore. Like, thank you, Kelly Oubre, for that. Like, thank you for your service. I said it earlier, but like, man, I just appreciate him so much for that. And sorry to see him go. I really am. I wish I could go to that game and just give him his standing ovation he deserves.
Yeah. I mean that's the thing. I wish there was a way to make it work, but that's it is a business. Sometimes that's what it takes. But I will miss his energetic play, his effort, his push-ups, all the culture stuff. I will not miss. I don't know if it's a real stat or not, but it seems like he was the most blocked player in the league. So I won't miss that. I won't miss, as the season went on, his style kind of was the odd man out. It was sort of not high on passing, quick decisions, and
the ball stuck with him. It wasn't that half-second decision.
And the team is moving away from that direction. You really saw that. It elevated Cam and Bridges to play in that fast style. So, yeah.
I think his contribution, as Dave said, is important. It was valuable for its culture, as we mentioned. I do think the fans that are super torn up about this were either people who thought he was extremely hot or people who were very much overstating his value, because how many games did he play for the Suns? Barely over a full season?
85 maybe total. Yeah.
I do think he was important, but you know what really got Phoenix back to credibility? Devin fucking Booker got Phoenix back to credibility. Because without Booker here, it doesn't matter what antics Oubre shows up with and how much passion and drive he has on the floor. If that's an 8-win team, Kelly Oubre's contributions don't do a goddamn thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So for those folks who are the most distraught, I'm not saying if he was your favorite player, you can feel emotions and stuff. I'm not saying that, but he was one of the most important Phoenix. Let's calm the fuck down, all right? This is a storied franchise, and Oubre was here for just over a season, all right? He was important. Again, I'm thankful for what he did for us, But when you looked at the roster, if they were going to make this happen, it had to be Rubio and it had to be Oubre. There wasn't like, there are times when you make a deal and you're like, well, it could have been like these 5 or 6 players in some combination. Like, what if we had done this? With the salaries, it had to be those two because it wasn't going to be Booker or Ayton or Bridges.
Yeah,
so
and
it
honestly,
made it simple.
Unless it was an absolute slam dunk, which Chris Paul close to, I would have felt really bad sending Johnson out too.
Yeah.
That would have hurt a lot. Yeah. I felt like Booker was huge. He's number one, the most important thing. The second most important thing in the bubble was maybe having the ability, now that Bridges was starting at the 3, having Cam Johnson start at the 4. Like, that was huge for so many reasons. Some of them sort of intangible. So yeah. Well, it had to be this for a few different reasons.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm sad about it, but it's okay.
Well, and just, I mean, all the things that we kept, like you said, we kept so much in this. We gave up what we had to. I don't know. I think it's such a win-win trade for both sides.
It really is.
For both teams. Like, really. Oklahoma got exactly what they wanted.
Like,
yes.
There was a chance we were going to ask you to be the 6th man, and now you can go be a starter. And I hope you're really successful. I really do.
Go score 25 a game and have the Sacramento Kings sign you to a 4-year, $120 million contract. Enjoy yourself, sir.
Yeah. By the way, it's really nice just to have a trade where players went out and not hate them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
We sort of touched on that earlier, but just in general, thinking back over the last decade, it's like, man, we either traded people who didn't want to be here anymore because they hated us, or we hated them and we were happy to see them go. And boy, is it nice to be like, man, it sucks that they're going. Like, geez, man,
I'm not ready to buy all of the James Jones stock yet, but I am getting closer with every year. I think he's doing a really good job. He might actually know what he's doing. Is what it's starting to seem like.
I'm gonna buy a call option on him. Just invest a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's fine.
No one knows.
It sounds great.
It sounds good. I'm sure it's a great metaphor. But yeah, I mean, look at the roster now: Paul, Booker, Bridges, power forward ? Maybe Johnson, maybe somebody else, maybe Sharge. Who knows? Ayton, Kaminsky should be back almost certainly. Then you have this bench that's probably Carter, probably Payne. Johnson, assuming he's not in the starting lineup. This number 10 pick could be meaningful. Who knows?
Probably a guard or wing, Not shooting 2 or 3 probably is what we're picking.
See Sorry. I kind of want Cam to start. And if we have Saric, I think that happens. If we have like Gallinari, then maybe not. But
yeah, you start Gallo because the rest of that lineup covers for his deficiencies on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And he spaces the floor beautifully. And that's another injury risk. But Gallo's been pretty healthy the last couple of years, as has Chris Paul, for the record. But we'll see. Chris Paul's on the wrong side of 35, and Gallo's now over 30. So I don't know.
Monty Williams, though, that's
solid,
huge. That's a James Jones thing.
Like, that's probably a borderline top 10 coach in the NBA, which we also have not had for a long time.
Yep. And sending out bad culture, bringing in good culture, and sending out bad culture in like not a McDonough way. Like, we don't really like you. We don't want what you're about to be here, but like, good luck. James Jones has been huge.
I'm so glad.
If you're going to look at the culture and what changed, Devin Booker, and then it's James Jones.
I tried to defend McDonough for years and years and years and years and be like, he's building something. We're going to be something. Like, and then it never came. And now James Jones is here and doing something. It was like, all right. And then I started to think, I saw a Reddit thread that said, like, what would McDonough have done in this offseason if he were still the GM? And someone said, like, traded Devin Booker in number 10 for the number 1 pick, or number 2 pick in Andrew Wiggins to try to build for the future. It's like, no!
I don't even know if McDonough was that stupid. But
no, he wasn't, but it was just like...
The fact that you even have to consider it as a legitimate possibility, even for a millisecond, is troubling.
Yes, it is.
And you know what? I saw Ricky Rubio had a tweet that was like, ... what a business, and like an upside down smiley face, which is, not a smiley face. And that sucks. Again, seems like a really good guy, has never really found a sticking point in his career. Just doesn't seem like anybody's really wanted to latch on to him, and that sucks. Oubre sucks. But in this league, you have to give up stuff to get stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The days of somebody fleecing somebody else are almost over, because it's looking like that Houston OKC deal was one of them. And maybe if the Clippers don't actually win anything, that Paul George situation with also giving OKC 1 million picks isn't going to look too good. But at the end of the day, you don't really get these one-sided trades anymore. So we had to give up something of value. And it speaks to Oubre and Rubio that they were considered to be enough value to make this happen. So as we've said, best wishes to them. I hope Chris Paul's not a total asshole. I hope his legs don't fall off. If he's 90% of what he was last season, I like our chances to make the playoffs for sure.
Yep.
All right, that's the end of this episode. There's no show next week for Thanksgiving. There's also not going to be one this Thursday. This is the show for this week.
I hope when we come back, we can talk about Harden, Irving, and Durant and what that's going to look like.
The next episode is December 3rd. So by the time that happens, we'll be done with free agency, I think. Is that right? Yeah, it's only like an 8 or 10 day window.
And the season will be 2 weeks away.
Yeah, we'll have training. The next time we do an episode, we'll probably do the Suns again and just basketball because December 3rd, they'll be in training camps preparing for next season, having done the draft and free agency and all of that jazz. So we'll have it all at our disposal. We can actually maybe make a pick for how many wins they're going to have. We were all very close last year.
Mm-hmm.
If they had finished a full season, they were on pace to hit right in the range we said they would.
That's awesome.
They finished with 34 wins. I think you picked 35, Sean. Chris picked 33, and I think I picked 34. So we're all kind of wrong in the sense of had they played the extra 10 games, then they would have won a few. But we were all right there. So.
Yeah, we were all right around it. And maybe if they don't get delayed, they don't have the kind of end-of-season performance they would have. I don't know. I mean, that's a hypothetical. It's not even worth entertaining. But regardless, we were all kind of on the pulse of it. I would love to see what our win count's going to be when we pick it this year.
I have a number right now that I'm going to say 44, but that's contingent. It could change.
Too many movie
remember
Gallinari and all these other things.
It's a 72-game season this year.
I'm still going with 44.
Oh.
44 and 28.
That's a pretty good record.
Yeah, I'm not going on record with any pick like that, even though nobody gives a shit. It's not like it's going to be held against me, but I'm not doing that until I see exactly what we're looking at as far as... Because, if the Warriors manage to trade, Wiggins in the number 2 for some other 4th star, then, we might be reevaluating our list in the West or whatever the case might be. But we'll see.
James Harden all of a sudden.
Yeah, they get Harden somehow, and you're like, what the fuck? You get whiplash. But we'll have a clearer picture by December 3rd. So that's when we're back in between. Hopefully enjoy your time with your family, but not too much family for Thanksgiving. Or maybe just stay at home and wear a mask, you stupid fucks. But that's the end of this episode. We'll be back, as we mentioned, December 3rd. In between shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or on youtube.com/objectionnetwork, where content will continue to come out until we return on the 3rd. We'll see you next time.